Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Biggerplate.com. Today I want to talk briefly about mind mapping and creative thinking. Now, mind mapping tools and techniques are a fantastic way to support creative thinking processes, whether that's by yourself individually or in a group setting. But mind mapping tools are not going to do all the work for you. They're not suddenly going to turn you into a creative genius in the same way that owning a Ferrari doesn't necessarily turn you into a great driver. But what mind mapping software and tools like MindMeister can do is really help to harness and extract the natural creative thinking that your brain is perfectly capable of doing itself. Mind mapping tools are really the way to pull up those threads, pull things together and represent it on a screen or on a board in a way that's going to help you go further. So let's see how we can do that using MindMeister. Okay, so here we are looking at a simple mind map that I've created using MindMeister. Now, creativity and creative thinking is a pretty hard thing to define and explain sometimes, but what most authors and experts seem to be telling us is it really boils down to connections, making those creative associations in our minds and then seeing where that takes us. When I think about connections, I think about it in terms of making them, exploring them, and reshaping them. And in that regard, I think mind mapping and mind mapping software in particular is a real connections catalyst. It seems to just trigger more things and support my thinking when I'm trying to be in that slightly more creative state of mind. When it comes to making connections, really that's about adding topics into the map and how easy that is. So if I start off with one word and I think about a word that associates with it, I just start to add that into my mind map, and it's very quick and easy for me to just keep adding into my mind map, just typing and building out. Now this is a pretty sort of linear set of connections in my mind, so if I give you one word, you think of the next, the next, the next, and that's the first way we can start to connect up ideas and information and have it reflected in our mind map. The benefit of using tools like MindMeister is also when we're sticking in mind mapping, we're trying to be keyword focused. So we're focusing really on just trying to use 1, 2, 3 words at a time and avoid writing big long sentences. In my experience, this helps to just trigger a little bit more. You've got more sort of potential associations and connections to make in your mind by not narrowing yourself down too soon with a big long, very explicit sentence of information. The other thing is avoiding big long sentences helps to keep things moving, both for yourself or particularly if you're working with a group. So importantly, in a mind map, we want to stay keyword focused, and that's going to help keep things moving and keep the associations and connections coming. Importantly, obviously, in a mind map, is all of this is then being reflected in a very visual structure, and it's going to help us to connect things up visually. We can see how this led to this and this led to that, and how these things relate to each other, either through the map structure itself, so we can sort of look at this tree structure that helps us understand how we might have arrived at one particular topic by just sort of following the tree structure up or down. But of course, we've also, in tools like MindMeister, got options of putting in very sort of explicit visual signals around how things might be connected. So that's when we're making and connecting our ideas together. But then we might start to explore them. Well, really, that's just about keep going, add more, build more, whatever it might be. So you've got the option in MindMeister to just go and go as long as you want, because you've essentially got this kind of infinite canvas. The tool will expand as far as your ideas want to go, and that's very, very powerful for feeling unrestricted in your thinking, but also knowing you've got a tool that's kind of going to capture and reflect back what you've been thinking as you do it. Importantly, along the same lines, the map can jump with you. So if you make a real leap in your thinking and want to go over to a totally different area, it's as simple as kind of grabbing the mind map canvas and moving to wherever it is you want to add those ideas and that thinking, or build out, explore that idea. So the map canvas and tools like MindMeister give us an infinite sort of playground for our ideas. And then also they're going to help us to really reshape and play around with the connections we've made. And that's where we want to start being able to play and maybe break some of the first thoughts we had, move them around a bit and see what else might happen if we combine things that maybe didn't belong together. Maybe we might trigger some interesting associations by very simply moving a topic around and seeing what else it might connect to. And we can move individual topics, or we can even grab entire branches and move them around. And that's going to help us play around with trying different shapes of ideas alongside each other and seeing what unusual combinations that might trigger in our head. So as I say, I think mind mapping is a great way to capture and reflect the natural creative thinking process. Once you've got some of the ideas into a mind map, it's also really going to help you on a creative side in terms of making it a little bit more personal, making it yours, and maybe getting a bit artsy, but without the drawings, importantly. So you can use any number of features in tools like MindMeister. We can add little icons and emojis and images to our information to make it stand out. We can play around with the color of our topics and make them into something that really speaks to us for some reason. And we can also add images into the mind map, the slightly larger images from the library within the software, or obviously pulling from our own computer or the web. So how does all of that take shape? Well, really, I would not go too far into this apart from saying don't worry about being creative. Just start mapping, and that is really just reflecting a natural creative process. Write something in the middle of a map and then just see what else comes to mind. And then what? And then what? Add more, keep building, keep going. It's actually not that complicated. Some people are really determined to make creative thinking very complex. I would suggest you can get started with very, very simple prompts. For example, you could use a template that we use all the time at Biggerplate for our own creative thinking. We just ask ourselves, how could we make it more? And then we'll just choose 6 random images to put around in a mind map. And that then becomes our prompt for make it more. So whatever our problem or our challenge is, we can say, how could we make it more elephant? How can we make it more bicycle? How can we make it more Italy? Whatever that might mean. Now, this is quite outlandish as a prompt, but you'll see it will take your brain into unusual places. And you could start by very simply just thinking about how do you make, so if Biggerplate is our project, how can we make it more elephant? Well, what are the characteristics of an elephant? Well, they're big, they're pretty sturdy, they're grey, they live a long time. So we've got just a couple of characteristics just to throw in here. But what does that prompt for us? Well, sturdy in terms of our business. Okay, so maybe we need sort of robust systems. Not very exciting, sexy stuff, but maybe that could be about site security, perhaps. So we can just start to prompt and pull out all these ideas. Now, I've gone pretty practical quite quickly there, but you just need to play around with the idea. Well, what's grey? Grey could also be silver. We could think about maybe Biggerplate could do silver, gold, bronze memberships instead of our pro memberships. Silver, maybe there's elderly, maybe comes to mind. Maybe Biggerplate should be doing something to teach elderly people how to use mind mapping, whatever that means. Who knows where the thoughts might take you? If you go down to bicycle, you might start to think about green, about simplicity of design, about it being timeless. And we can just pull on any of those threads. Well, a bike is green. What could that mean for us, and where could we go with that? Again, the mind map is just going to enable us to brainstorm around any of these topics. And using very simple, slightly silly prompts like be more something is a really great way to prompt your thinking. And importantly, if you do that using a tool like MindMeister, you're going to actually be able to capture and develop that thinking really, really easily and coherently using the mind map and the visual way of representing all of those connections that you're making. I hope that helps and gives you some ideas for how to start using mind mapping to support your creative thinking. And until next time, happy mapping.